I just want to say I am not a confrontational person in any sense of that word. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me again to watch one of my videos. I actually had a different video planned for today, but since I went into town this morning for my 24-week OB checkup, I wanted to talk to you guys about this appointment instead. It's not going to be a super long video, but I just felt like it was important to discuss. As you may have already seen by the title, I'm going to be talking about the glucose tolerance test, the test that they use to screen for gestational diabetes when you're pregnant. Usually they will screen for this test around the 24-week to 28-week gestational period. And currently right now, like I said, I'm at 24 weeks, so they wanted me to take the test at my next appointment, but they were handing me all of the information for the test and, you know, that 50 grams of glucose that you're supposed to drink within like 5 minutes. I hadn't really thought about it, that I knew it was coming up and I knew it was something that I was going to want to discuss with my doctor, just because I have been on this carnivore diet for over a year now, and it is a very low carb diet. So you know, my body is not used to that hit of glucose in that amount, and that's really something that I was concerned about. So I guess this video is just here today to help you guys, if you're in the same situation of me, if you're on a keto, carnivore, or just a low carb diet in general. For number one, is it necessary to take that glucose tolerance test? Is it necessary to take that big load of sugar all at once? And I understand the purpose of it. I know that they are screening for a very serious condition, which is gestational diabetes, which can, you know, affect your baby in a lot of harmful ways if you do indeed have gestational diabetes. But in my case, and I think in a lot of people's case, I really do think that it is a little bit unnecessary. I don't think that it's very healthy for a pregnant woman's body to be loaded up with such a large amount of sugar at one time, and I certainly don't think that it's healthy for the baby as well. Being a nurse and in the nursing field, I understand why they test every single pregnant woman, not just the ones at risk, because even women that don't show signs of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, or have risk factors for type 2 diabetes, it can develop during pregnancy. And some of the symptoms that you'll have if you are having gestational diabetes would be things like nausea, unusual thirst, frequent urination, dizziness, frequent bladder, vaginal, skin infections. You'll also have glucose in your urine, so sugar in your urine is something that they'll look for. And then also things like blurred vision. So those are some of the signs and symptoms that you would have if you were at risk for getting gestational diabetes, or if you already have it. And so today, when I told them that I would like to defer or decline the test, I know I'm not having any of those symptoms. With my 2 previous pregnancies, when I was eating a standard American diet, I always passed my glucose tolerance test and I was always fine. I was never at risk for gestational diabetes. I just really feel like at this point in the game, I'm very healthy. I feel amazing. This is the best pregnancy I've had so far. And I just really felt like it was unnecessary to load my body up with that much sugar and as well affect my baby with that sugar. And I just want to say I am not a confrontational person in any sense of that word. In fact, it makes me feel really nervous and really like, ooh, I don't want to talk about this, just because I know that it's something that probably will, you know, raise some eyebrows and people will not understand. A lot of doctors won't understand, a lot of nurses won't understand. So to kind of give you guys a summary of how my morning went, I got in the room with the nurse, she took my vitals, everything was good, and then the nurse starts going over the paperwork for this glucose tolerance test, and you know, she gets done with what she's saying, and I just kindly and politely tell her that I would like to defer the test. and her eyebrows raised instantly, and she's just like, oh, well, I don't know if the doctor is gonna let you. I think he might make you take the test. And being a nurse, I know that you have patient rights and you can basically do whatever you want. The doctor can only recommend and give you his medical advice, but it's not like you have to take it. And so understanding that, she was just like, you know, you can just talk to him about it and he'll let you know what you're supposed to do. And I told her that was fine. And I had just tried to explain myself a little bit, saying that I had been on a low carb diet for over a year now, and that I just didn't really feel comfortable with taking that large amount of sugar at one time for me or my baby. And she seemed very understanding of it. She seemed very nice about it. So she left and the doctor came in within a few minutes. He goes through everything, says baby's looking great, all my vital signs are great. And then we got to talking about the glucose tolerance test. He was telling me how I'd come back in 4 weeks and take it. And so I had to bring it up again. And I was like, well, actually, I talked to the nurse a little bit about it, and I told her that I would like to defer it. And he literally stops what he's doing, looks me straight in the eye, and he's like, now what do you mean by deferring it? And I was like, well, like, not take it, not do it. And he was just like, now, you know, you understand why we give this test. And I was like, yep, I do understand. And he's just like, it's to test your pancreas and to see how well it's functioning, and we want to make sure that the cells are, you know, able to take up the amount of glucose so it's not harming the baby. And I was like, I understand all of that. And I let him know that I was a nurse, and I just tried to be really polite and really kind through the whole situation. And I just kind of sat there as he gave me the information of why they do the test. And he was saying that if you do have gestational diabetes and you're putting your baby at risk for, you know, large birth weight, premature labor, stillborn birth, and yeah, it just all the scary stuff. So then when I informed him that I've been on a low carb diet, I asked him if he was familiar with low carb diets and how I just felt like you know, my glucose receptors are probably down regulated after not consuming a lot of glucose for over a year now. And so if I took this test, I would probably fail it, just because my body is not used to having to handle that much sugar, because on a daily basis, you guys all know, I don't eat a whole lot of sugar. I just eat a lot of meat and a lot of dairy and all that good stuff. And so when he found that out, he said, yes, you know, I'm very, you know, used to the low carb diet. I've tried it myself. And he's just like, you need a certain amount of carbs. And that was the first thing I didn't agree with. I didn't say anything. But then he's like, and if you're not eating carbs, so you need to make sure that you're having a lot of fat and a lot of cholesterol in your diet, because otherwise you're going to give your baby neurological defects and it's not going to grow correctly. And I was like, oh yes, I know that. I eat tons of, you know, saturated fats, cholesterol. I eat a meat dense diet. So he slowly started to come around to what I was saying. And I think I lucked out with this doctor, just because it did seem like he has dabbled in the low carb spectrum, in the low carb world. And so he did seem to understand where I was coming from. Yet at the end of the day, he did tell me that it was his obligation and his responsibility to inform me of the possible consequences of not taking this test, and that, you know, he had to do his job and let me know. But at the end of the day, it was still my choice and my decision. And so I just really appreciated the candidness that we had with each other. It was a very good conversation. I was probably sweating the whole time, just because, like I said, I do not like confrontation. I don't like, you know, having to go against the grain. But I felt like this was important, and important for my baby and important for myself. And so I just kind of want to tell you guys that it's okay. It's okay if you don't take the glucose tolerance test when you're pregnant, especially if you are feeling really good. Now, on the other hand, if you're not feeling great, if you may have some concerns that you may have gestational diabetes, then that is the case where I would have it checked. Or the alternatives are, which I think is better, is have your A1C checked, you know, take your blood sugar instead, like get a glucose monitor and do it like 3 to 4 times a day. So you could do it fasting in the morning and then postprandial, or like after your meals. So like you eat a meal for breakfast, you could test it 1 hour after that meal. You eat lunch, test it 1 hour after that meal of lunch, and then you could do the same thing for dinner. And that's something that I even suggested to the doctor today instead of doing the test. I said, you know, I could check my blood sugars if you wanted me to, instead of taking this glucose tolerance test after, you know, I wake up in the morning fasting and then postprandial. And he said, yeah, that would be fine, but, you know, if you're all set up and have the glucose monitor and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, you know, I could do it if you guys like borrowed me one, because I don't really have one at the house. And so he's like, well, yeah, in that case it won't work. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I know you guys have a lot of glucose monitors here in this hospital or in this clinic, but it is what it is. I also asked if I could just do an A1C instead, like a hemoglobin A1C. And he said that that wouldn't matter, which I don't really understand why he said that, because I think that the hemoglobin A1C actually shows a more like average value of your glucose. It's a little bit more reliable, I would think, because it shows it, you know, for how your glucose is kind of, like I said, on the average or long term. And it's not like I'm going to be drinking or eating 50 grams of sugar throughout my day. I mean, you guys know I don't eat a lot of glucose throughout my day. This test just seems a little bit irrelevant to me, because it's not like I'm going to be consuming these loads of sugar throughout this pregnancy. You know, I probably get some carbs through eggs or cheese or liver, things of that sort, but nothing close to 50 grams a day. And so that's really why I'm not concerned about taking this test, and why it's okay in my mind to pass it up. And me and the doctor joked at the end of my visit, after he found out that I was a nurse, and he asked me if I got the flu shot this year too, and I told him I didn't. I usually always get all the shots, like the tetanus shot and things of that sort, when I am pregnant, but the flu shot I usually don't like to get, because every single year that I get the flu shot I tend to get sick. And so we were joking that I'm a rogue nurse, that I don't follow the specific guidelines. And you know what? I'm okay with that, because I was also mentioning to him, it is really cool being a nurse and being able to be your own patient and to really understand your body better than anyone. And so he agreed with me on that, and I just felt like we really ended the conversation well. There was no hard feelings on either way, on either side. And yeah, it was just a positive experience overall, even though I was not prepared for it. I wasn't even thinking about it this morning, of having to discuss this issue. I just want to tell you guys what I did, and hopefully maybe if some of you have some concerns about taking the glucose tolerance test when you're pregnant, this can give you some ideas of how you can get around it, or how you can go about talking about it. Another way that you could go about saying that you didn't want the test is just, you know, tell your doctor that due to my dietary lifestyle, I believe that the accuracy of these test results would be affected. You don't consume large amounts of sugar on a daily basis, and your body really, you know, isn't shocked. Your system and your pancreas and your insulin levels aren't used to handling that amount of sugar overload. So to sum this all up, even though me and the doctor seemed to meet on good terms, at the end of our visit, the doctor did ask me to take the glucose tolerance home. So like the little jar that I have right here, or the little bottle. And this is 50 grams of glucose. I think it is glucose, not dextrose. But anyways, 50 grams of sugar here. You're supposed to drink this within 5 minutes, and then they will test your blood sugar levels an hour after. But yeah, like I said, I'm not going to take this. The doctor had me take it just in case I changed my mind, which I won't. And when the nurse came in to set up my next appointment, I told her that, yeah, he told me to take it, because she asked if we had discussed it. And I was like, yeah, he told me to take it home, but I'm not going to take it. And she was just like, well, I won't tell anybody. I'm like, I don't care. You know, I've already put everything out in the open, and I've told the doctor how I feel. And I thought it was kind of cool too that, like I said, I did feel like I did get a good doctor today to discuss this. Maybe not everyone will be so fortunate, but because he was a little bit more aware of the low carb world, he seemed a little bit more understanding. And he even said himself at the end of our visit that some of his colleagues would probably not be so understanding of my reasons of why I did not want to take this glucose tolerance test. And I told him I understand, you know, everybody's at a different place and what they believe is good and healthy for them. I did take this home just to show you guys what it looks like if you've never seen it before. But I'm gonna, like I said, bring it back at my next appointment, and they can maybe, you know, put it back in storage or wherever they had it. So yeah, that's just all I really wanted to talk to you guys about today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. I post new videos every Wednesday, and it all relates around the carnivore diet and my pregnancy. This is my 3rd pregnancy if you're new here, and I just really appreciate every one of you that watch my videos every single week, and I love reading the comments. I read every single one, and I just really appreciate this community that's starting to grow. And I love the support, and I love that we can all help each other through this dietary lifestyle. But yeah, I will see you guys next Wednesday in my next video, and until then, be blessed.